EA College Football, it's
Mhm.
back, baby, and we're going to talk about the trailer and most importantly, why the gameplay will be good enough. So, if you're on the podcast side, you're going to be listening to this. If you're on the YouTube side, Garrett's going to be rolling the trailer in the background because hey, it was too good not to have going, right? I mean, I might as well get to watch it as many times as we can. I know I've watched it multiple times. I've watched breakdown videos of it. I mean, it's just we've waited a decade, right? And I want to
Mhm.
consume as much content as we can. But obviously the trailer was, I think, as epic as any video game trailer that we've seen in the sports realm, right? Sports games, yes, are certainly meant to be graphically amazing. I think you
Mhm.
look at 2K, you look at Madden, they do a really good job, even MLB the Show. But for I think sports games in general, it's typically not what Battlefield or what Red
Right.
Dead Redemption has been. These games that are built first and foremost on graphics. And I think that the traditions, the equipment, all looks insane. But what everybody really wants to know is how the gameplay is going to be. And Garrett, when you hear and when you've read comments that are trying to spoil the moment, what are those comments? What do they say?
It seems like a lot of people are looking at some of the like motion mechanics from what I've seen and saying like, okay, well, this looks like this is going to be very similar in gameplay. And look, to a certain degree, there's only so many ways that you can skin a pig, right? There's only so many ways that you can actually do this thing. And I'm thinking, okay, like are passing mechanics going to look the same? Are running mechanics going to look the same? Are there certain things that you're going to be able to do that are going to look very similar? Like, yeah, obviously, like there's going to be certain things that are going to look just similar, but I just to call it a reskin, like to a certain degree, every time you have a sports game, it's just going to be a reskin, right? It's we're gonna update the graphics a little bit, we're gonna throw a new thing in there, but there's so much that they've put into finding the traditions. There's so much they've put into making sure it feels like the real deal, feels like the actual experience, and it's not just like, hey, they threw in that one little thing. It actually is looking like they're trying to throw in all the traditions and all of what makes college football so special. And to me, that's the thing that stands out, right? There's going to be certain game modes. There's going to be certain things. I mean, there's only so many ways, again, that you can put, football on a gridiron and let people play it, right? You're not going to completely, you know, innovate the whole thing to a completely new thing. But, it just at a certain point, I think that you have to acknowledge like this is a lot of work to build up what college football is. Obviously, the graphics are a massive step in the right direction. And for the fact that it is a sports video game, this trailer was one of the more exciting trailers that I've seen, for any video game. There've been,
Yeah.
three or four maybe ever that I've thought like, oh yeah, this has me really excited and hyped for a game besides just this trailer.
I think what folks are arguing is kind of two different things. On one hand, they're saying it's a Madden reskin because it's made by EA. It's made
Sure.
on the same engine, right? Well, no duh. It's going to be made
Right.
on the same engine, right? EA is not going to invest the millions of dollars and millions of dollars in resources and manpower that it would take to construct an entirely new operating system and graphics engine. Like that's not going to happen. Of course, it's going to be built on the Frostbite engine, which is inherently a graphics first and an animation first engine, right? You think back to Battlefield when that was coming out, the destruction, the levolution, that was like a next step in video game animations, right? So that is not inherently made for like the smoothest gameplay, maybe like a natural football game might progress, but that's okay. It's a video game.
Right.
We're supposed to get more of an arcade style, right? I think what folks are missing is all of the context that's been added into this where EA and the moles that are kind of putting out information as they're allowed to, they're saying this is going to be a faster game. They're saying this is going to be a looser game in order to encapsulate that energy and what makes college football unique. They are speeding up the pace of play of this game. Now, in Madden, what's the number one issue with Madden? It's too slow. It's too animation based, right? In
Yeah.
the NFL level, of course, everything's faster than in college because the players are better. Everyone is elite at the NFL level. But at the college level, I think it was maybe Eric Mayweather or Bangle, one of the big YouTubers pointed this out. At the college level, speed looks different because some guys are just that much better
Hmm.
than everybody else, right? But as a whole, with the energy that's around the stadium, with the traditions, with the different playbooks, which they say there's 134 different playbooks in this game, one for each team, all of that will be amplified by what they're saying is a faster pace of play, a faster, looser game that I think is going to get us closer to what NCAA 14 was than what Madden 24 was.
Yeah. Well, and the other big thing about it too is just, there's so many other things you can do with this just because of the fact that college football is different than the NFL, right? There's certain things that just don't happen the same way, right? Like, so for example, hopefully, and I'm still crossing my fingers with a large contingent on Twitter, we're rooting for mascot mode, right? We're rooting for that to actually, show up. We can still do the mascot showdowns and all that. But there's also things, the dynasties and everything else that, if you're playing this, you can still do this to some degree, but it just looks different in college football, right? It just is going to
Yeah.
be different. You're not going to just be playing the regular, 17 game schedule plus playoffs. This is like, there's rivalry games, there's, all the different recruiting elements of
Yeah.
everything. Whereas, you don't have
Transfer
like,
portal.
yeah, transfer portal. I'm curious to see what they do with NIL and just all
Yeah.
that. And, they're going to have all of that to play with in addition to, oh yeah, there's an expanded college football playoff that we haven't even seen. This might be kind of our first experience with it. Is not watching it on the field in real life, but actually playing it in the game and kind of seeing like how that feels and what it looks like to have that kind of intense playoff. And so, this is going to be a lot of fun. And also just this take all of this backwards, right? Let's take all of this off of that pressure, right? Let's take the whole thing out of context for just a second. Don't try to police fun, right? There's just so many people that
Seriously.
seem they're so just hell bent on just no, this is bad. I don't like no, you're getting the game for the first time in a while. We had to rely on like sketchy revamp files for the past decade,
Yeah.
and stuff that maybe didn't work right if the shaders changed or there was a different graphics card or something like that. And now we're actually going to get the game. And we don't
Yeah.
have to feel weird about it, and we can just have the game. And also, like, who cares if it's kind of a reskin? Like, we still want to go play as those players. We still want to go have those game modes. This is what we want. Like, this is something that people want. And if people are excited about it, like, sorry if it doesn't meet your like 3 or 4 obscure criteria for being a good game, right? Like, I'm sorry if it doesn't hit that for you. I hope you can forgive it for just being the first college football game in a decade, right? I
Yeah.
hope you can find a way to, in your heart, forgive EA for maybe coming up a little bit short on something their first time back.
Well, this is literally that's the other thing. This is not the Madden team that is just been pulling double duty to produce
Yeah.
both Madden 25 and the new college football game. This is an entirely new team. This was a dev team that was built from the ground up. And dude, reading some of the reports, some of the interviews that have come out since the release of this trailer, originally the plan for this game was to have 50 stadiums built to spec, right? 50 of
Wow.
the biggest, best stadiums that were going to be identical to what they were in real life. And then that dev team realized that won't be good enough. We
Yep.
can't just stop at 50. And so they literally had to go to the drawing board and come up with a whole new methodology that would go, okay, building all of these stadiums we thought was going to be impossible. How do we make it possible? And
Right.
what they came up with was a solution that allowed them to essentially go brick by brick to not only create the size and the scope, but the lighting, the atmosphere, and the
Hmm.
background around the stadium, too, right? Like Kinnick Stadium will have the Children's Hospital
Yep.
in the background, right? Like college towns are going to have their water towers in the background. Wyoming, over in Appalachia, the mountains, the trees
Yeah.
are all in the background, right? You feel not like you're just playing in a stadium, but you feel like you are playing in a
Hmm.
city, in a town, on a college campus. That is completely new to sports games in general, right? Because like
Right.
Madden has done it with stadium exteriors, and MLB The Show has done it with stadium exteriors. But not once have you ever gotten to play where you're like looking out
Hmm.
beyond the stadium with any real sort of perspective, right? You play
Yeah.
on MLB The Show and you play in San Diego. Yeah, you've got some, kind of cartoony looking skyscrapers and a, real 1D plane that like flies
Yeah.
past every 2 or 3 minutes,
Right.
right?
Right.
But this like they just showed the Wyoming shot, right? The size, the grandeur that they've brought to me, man, like it's all worth it. And you know what? The gameplay may not be perfect. That's okay. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
their first time in 10 years. Am I going to buy the game and enjoy the heck out of whatever we get? For sure.
Yeah. Well, and also like if the gameplay is not perfect, like sorry, but also that's kind of some of the funny things about some of these previous games is when the gameplay and the engine was a little bit weird and you could kind of abuse some stuff. Like, yeah, we want it to be like perfect and accurate and everything else, but there'll be some funny things about it that we say like, oh yeah, I remember the 25 game. That was the one where they did this thing and like the spin
Always
move
is.
was weird or something like that, and if you just ran at the right angle, you could spin and juke like three people at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's little things like that which it can be a little bit of a flaw, but it's endearing, especially when you look at the effort they put into every other detail, right? I think that's the part that people are going to like. I know for me, one of the first times that I played any of these college football video games, I just thought it was cool that I was at my team's home stadium. And
Yeah.
it wasn't even as close or as accurate as this is. It was just kind of that blocky sort of, lots of,
Yeah.
textures. You can see all the edges and everything. But this is actually going to look like, wait, I'm actually looking up at places that I've sat when I was in college, right? And that's going to be
Right.
kind of cool to look at that and relate with that and say, oh, look, this is like the run-in that we had, and this was the like halftime tradition, and this is what it actually sounds like. And I look, if it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but they did so many things right.
Yeah.
And look, at some point, you're not going to win everybody. Nothing goes 100%. So if there's 1, 2, 3, 4% of people that are just gonna get hung up on it, well, let them be sad. I feel bad for them.
Right. I mean, if you weren't going to buy the game, then you weren't going to buy the game
Yeah.
anyway. No, the biggest compliment that I can give to the EA devs, and I mean, I tweeted this as well, watching the trailer and seeing some of these run ins, I felt like I was back in college again.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, there was an aspect of, oh my gosh, I've been there. I've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. That is what we're looking for. The main player base of this will be like ages 25 to 45, right? And we're not going to mess with the microtransactions. Ultimate Team can, kick rocks. We're going to be playing Dynasty mode. We're going to be playing Road to Glory, and we're going to be playing our friends online. And that is college football video games in a nutshell. That's what we
Yeah.
want, and I'm so excited to get that back.
Yeah. It's just exciting. It's just an exciting time. This is what we waited for.
Right.
So, it's coming and here we go. Let's get ready for it.
All right. Well, let's we'll keep talking EA as we go throughout. I mean, we're 2 months out from the release. I'm excited about it. July 19th, I believe, is when it releases for everybody. So we'll pass along news. We'll chat about it as we get closer.
Gracious, yeah. How